Now let's get going on Kapitel 3.2, which is the genitive. So this is actually the fourth noun case. We're getting to the very last noun case. There's nominative, accusative, dative, and genitive, and so we're already getting to the last noun case. But first, let's do the exercises from the end of the last unit. So we've got this dialogue between Sabine and Thomas. So Sabine says, Dein Pullover gefällt mir sehr gut. And this is a very tricky verb. Gefällt here is conjugated, but the infinitive would be gefallen. And that means it means you like it, but really it's the opposite. Your sweater is pleasing to me, as in I like your sweater. So you can do either way, but to switch the order of the subject versus the indirect object sounds a little more natural. I like your sweater a lot. Dein Pullover gefällt mir sehr gut. But either way is fine. Thomas says, Danke, gehört meinem Großvater. So this one belongs to my grandfather. So this one's a little more straightforward. And you can see this is actually a dative ending. It's on a possessive right here. But and we'll do the possessives in more detail in another unit very soon. But you can see that it's actually einem, and then you put the M on the front and it's meinem. So it has all the same endings as it would if it were einem, just an indefinite article. So possessives work just like indefinite articles. So you can see that's still that same dative ending there. It belongs to my grandfather. Es gehört meinem Großvater. And then Deine Schuhe gefallen mir sehr gut. I like your shoes a lot, and literally your shoes are very pleasing to me. And then you can see it's conjugated for a plural subject, not for a singular subject, like in the one before. Sabina says, Danke, übrigens, du bist ja gut in Mathe, oder? Ich habe Probleme mit den Hausaufgaben. So she says, thanks. By the way, übrigens is by the way. She says, you're good at math. You're good in math, I guess. And then she says, I'm having problems with the homework. And then he says, kein Problem, ich helfe dir. I help you, or I'll help you. And then this is actually in the dative. You don't have to know all the pronouns yet because we haven't gone over them, but mir and dia are the dative pronouns. To me and to you. So it's like I provide help to you. It's like when you may know, wie geht's dir? Mir geht's gut. Those are dative pronouns. So we'll do those in more detail later. But just for now, you need to know that mir and dir are in the dative. Okay, next one. We have these sentences where we mark the nominative, accusative, and dative, which is the same as marking the subjects and the direct objects and the indirect objects. So, Nummer 1. Der Bruder schenkt der Schwester einen neuen Drucker, which means the brother gives as a gift the sister a new printer. So our dative here, our indirect object is the sister. She is she's the indirect recipient of the giving action, and then the direct object is, of course, einen neuen Drucker. Nummer 2. Ich gebe der Frau eine alte Couch. So I gave the woman an old couch. And then you see the dative here. We've got a feminine, same as this one. It's actually die Schwester in the nominative and die Frau in the nominative, and they're feminine, right? So because they are now in the dative, it changes to der, but it looks like it could be masculine now, but it's not really masculine. It's still feminine. It's just feminine dative, which is der. Okay, Nummer 3. Heute gibt die Lehrerin den Studenten ein Quiz. So today the teacher gives the students a quiz. There's the subject, die Lehrerin, and then the verb, gibt. So this is like verb in the second position, subject comes after. We've got an adverb in the first position today. And then we've got our dative here. She gives as an indirect object the students, and then as a direct object the quiz. Yeah. Nummer 4. Siehst du morgen einen alten Schulfreund? That's, of course, are you seeing an old school friend tomorrow? An old school friend, a friend from school, an old friend from school. Actually, that's probably a better translation, an old friend from school, because an old school friend sounds maybe like something else. Anyway, So, but you can see how it's like, it's a compound noun. Like in English, we wouldn't have a compound noun for this, but in German, it is this noun stuck together. So a lot of times when you have like adjective noun in English, you would have an adjective and then a noun, but then in German, it puts the two nouns together. We'll see more of that later. So this one doesn't actually have an indirect object. It's just subject, verb, direct object, and an adverb. Kaufst du den Kindern ein iPad? So there's the subject, there's the verb, and then den Kindern is our dative, and this is actually in the plural dative, den plus a bonus n. After you've already formed the plural, if it's possible, put a bonus n on there for the dative plural. And you can tell it's actually das iPad because otherwise it would be einen if it were masculine, right? But because it's neuter, it doesn't have an ending in the accusative. Okay, Nummer 6. Wir schenken dem Opa einen Computer. And we have, of course, the subject, wir, then the verb, then dem Opa is in the dative. You recognize the dem for dative. And then einen Computer, that's the accusative. We're giving the grandfather a computer. And then Nummer 7, schenkt ihr der Mutter etwas zum Muttertag? Are y'all giving the mother something for Mother's Day? So we see our feminine dative right there, der Mutter. And then etwas just means something. Kaufst du dem Vater einen neuen Anzug? Do you buy for the father, or do you buy the father a new suit? Or you can say, are you buying the father a new suit? Yeah, dem Vater in the dative, and then einen neuen Anzug in the accusative. So then, of course, we have the chart we can reference whenever we're unsure about what's going on. Den for the masculine accusative, it shares the form with den for the plural dative. So it's like they both use that same den, but very different things are happening, right? And then the same thing for, the masculine nominative is der, but the feminine dative is there, and der, and then the dem and the dem, einem, both for the masculine and the neuter. And then these are pronouns that we will get to later. These will be helpful when we get to our pronouns. Okay, so now let's do the genitive. It's very exciting to already get to the genitive because often the genitive doesn't even happen until the second semester of German. So you're getting all of your noun cases pretty early, which is exciting because they'll be in your toolkit, and then we will be able to move on to other things. But German only has 4 noun cases, so a lot of languages have more than 4 noun cases. So it's pretty easy to only have 4 noun cases. So in English, we only have 2. We have subject case and object case, like I and me. I is subject case and me is object case, and we only use it in our pronouns. So we only got 2, and they're only in the pronouns. But in German, they are 4, and you use them in all the pronouns, or you use pronouns as well as nouns. Okay, so der Genitiv, the genitive. Aschenputtel geht auf das Schloss des Königs. You might be able to look at the sentence and figure out what a couple of the words mean. Geht, you probably recognize as goes. And then König looks a little bit like the English word. It actually means king. And then Aschenputtel means Cinderella. So that's what her name means, ash girl. So Asche means ashes. And then Putter is an old word for girl. So Aschenputtel means ash girl. And then Cinderella is like cinders or ashes. This is also ash girl because she sleeps in the ashes. So Aschenputtel geht auf das Schloss des Königs. What we have here is a genitive, and that means it's ownership, the castle of the king. And you could also say the king's castle. So you see how it's this S right here, and then the S at the end of the noun itself. And then in English, what we do to signal ownership is we do an apostrophe S. So you can see they have an etymological ancestor that is shared when you see the remnants of where they used to be the same form, right? Now they're used slightly differently, but you can see how they used to be the same. So, sie geht zum Fest des Königs. That would be, she goes to the festival of the king. Or you could also translate it, she goes to the king's festival. Yeah, those are the genders for that, for masculine. Then we have this one. Das ist das Schloss des Königs. This is, of course, the king's castle. This is the castle of the king, or this is the king's castle. And then, of course, by the end, it's Cinderella's castle, right? So das ist Aschenputtels Schloss. This is Cinderella's castle. And see how we have just the S at the end of her name. And then in English, we would have an apostrophe S. But in German, you don't have the apostrophe there. In English, you do, right? So you just add the S by itself. If you go back a few hundred years, they used to use that apostrophe in German. So if you're reading like 17th or 18th century texts, maybe even some 19th century texts, you would find, you would see that apostrophe there, but it's been gone for quite a while now. So the English still has it, but the German has lost that apostrophe. So this S suffix works only with people's names. So you can say Aschenputtel Schloss, that's her name, Aschenputtel. Or you can say Katja's Freund, which would be Katja's boyfriend or friend. And then you could say Michael's Katze, Michael's cat. So you can only do the simple version with just adding the S, like the parallel version to English. It has to be that person's real name. But you can't do it with normal nouns, any other regular noun like der König, the king, right? It's not his name, it's just a normal masculine noun. So the temptation is sometimes to do something like der König Schloss, just add an S on there, but you can't do that in German. It doesn't work. What you have to do with a normal noun is say das Schloss des Königs. So you have to do the whole genitive construction, which we will see in a moment. So the genitive, der Genitiv, it shows possession and ownership. So das Auto des Vaters would be the father's car, or if you wanted to translate it so the construction is parallel to English, it would be more like the car of the father, because the car comes first and then the father comes after. The car of the father, das Auto des Vaters. And then you can do am Ende der Straße, at the end of the street. And so this one isn't such a clear possession relationship, but you can see it expresses like this relationship between two objects or two ideas even that shows they're closely related, but maybe not exactly possession. So am Ende der Straße, at the end of the street, is like the normal translation. Or technically you could say at the street's end, but maybe it sounds a little weird. So you'd have to choose between either of these constructions, whichever one sounds better, depending on the context. And then you could also use von plus dative to express the same idea. We'll do these prepositions in more detail later, but it sounds more casual. So you would say das Auto von meinem Vater, or am Ende von der Straße. So you see how meinem Vater is in the dative, and it's actually feminine. Die Straße is feminine. So now it's in the dative. So you can do that, but it is more casual, and in writing, it's much preferred to use the genitive. And you can also use the genitive in speech. It's totally normal. It sounds nice, actually. But you will see both versions, von plus dative or just the genitive construction. Okay, so here we have the actual chart, so you can see how it works. So masculine genitive is then des Mannes, of the man. That's the definite article. Des Mannes, of the man. And then the indefinite article, eines Mannes, of a man. And then, so you see, we have these new articles, des and eines. And then we actually are putting something on the end of the noun itself, mannes. Normally it's just man, right? But we add that es on the end in this case. The feminine, we just changed the article. It was normally die Frau, but now it's changed to der Frau. And you can see that's actually the same as the dative, der Frau, right? And then eine Frau, that's also in the same as the dative. And then Neutrum, neuter. Des Kindes is the same. It also has the extra ending there, extra ending. And then der Kinder, this is a new form. So you're actually going to get a new article in this case. And this means like of the children. It's like of the man, of the woman, of the child, of the children, and then of a man, of a woman, of a child. So masculine and neuter articles are des or eines. See how the masculine des and the neuter des, and then masculine eines, neuter eines. Feminine and plural articles are der for here, and then der over here. So feminine and plural both get the der, definite article, and then the feminine gets the indefinite article einer. And then you can't do it with indefinite article in the plural. Okay, so then masculine and neuter nouns also take an es or an s at the end of the noun itself, mannes, kindes, and then we'll see which one you choose based on how long that noun is. So if the noun is one syllable, like Mann and Kind, those are one syllable. Mann, Kind, one syllable. Or it ends in an S sound, then you add an ES. Like here, der Mann becomes des Mannes. And der Tag becomes des Tages. So this is like the man of the man. And then the day of the day, des Tages. So it'd be like die Suppe des Tages, the soup of the day. Die Suppe des Tages. Or if it ends in an S sound, like Esset, Z, Zet, or TZ, right? Then you add an ES. So der Spielplatz becomes des Spielplatzes. So you get even though it's more than one syllable, you still get the ES because it ends in an S sound, and you have to separate the S sounds. So now let's look at if the noun is more than one syllable, just add an S. So der König, König is two syllables, so you get des Königs, just add an S. Or if it's der Professor, you would say des Professors, so it's like of the professor or belonging to the professor. And then with just to show you how it works with mein Professor, which would be the same as ein Professor, and then this is the eines right here, and so you just put the M at the front to make it mine. But it's this ending right here, meines, and then because it's more than one syllable, Professor, it's just the S right there, as opposed to here, because man is one syllable. So yeah, meines Professors, of my professor. So here we have the one in the book, and it has your chart as well. So it only has the definite articles, but we're doing the indefinite articles already because I don't want to withhold them from you. I want you to know about them already. But the book at this point only has the definite articles. So the genitive article is used for masculine and neuter, which is des, and then feminine and plural is der. And then see how des Mannes, in some cases it's optional, that's why they have this E, or des Kindes, optional. But in general, people do that, the ES for one syllable nouns, and you have to do it when the noun ends in a S sound, yeah. And then, of course, the plural, der Männer und der Frauen, of the men and of the women. So then we have some examples. So, der Name des Künstlers, the name of the artist would be like this in this order, the name of the artist. And so des sort of contains the possessive idea in it, right? So the name of the artist, or you could say, and of course, look at this S here. The Künstler, artist, is two syllables. And so we just add the S to the end of the noun itself. The name of the artist, or the artist name, der Name des Künstlers. And then das Werkzeug des Arbeiters. It's this very similar situation. We've got des, and then we've got our S at the end as well. Die Bewegung der Erde. So Erde is feminine. That's why we've changed it to der. Yeah, and so it's like, you could also say the Earth's movement. It sounds fine, but the movement of the Earth sounds more natural than like the tool of the worker, right? Sometimes one works better than the other. Das Jahr der Frau, the year of the woman. Das Jahr der Frau, that's feminine genitive. Die Farbe des Hauses, the color of the house. So Haus ends in an S sound. Also, it's one syllable and it ends in an S sound. So it's definitely going to take the ES instead of just the S, right? The color of the house, des Hauses. Die Macht der Kirchen, the power of the churches. Now we've got a plural here of the churches. Kirche, in the singular is Kirche, just the E at the end. But now the N makes it plural. Der Einfluss der Kirche, same thing, but now we see how we have the singular, die Kirche, singular. So they do share this article, and the only reason you know why this one is plural and this one isn't is because it's like this is the same, but then this is why it's so important to know what the singular form is and then be able to recognize the plural form. Because since it's feminine, you just can't tell the difference here, right? Die Meinung der Leute, the opinion of the people, or the people's opinion. Leute is always plural because it's people. It doesn't have a singular form. Die Stimme des Volkes, the voice of the people. Volk, populace. Yeah, that's why populace is like a more singular. It's singular, so it's more parallel. Das Volk, right? So because it is das Volk, neuter, it changes to des. And then this es has been added on as well. Normally it's das Volk. Das Volkes. Okay. So I have some fun examples from Bambi. You may know that Bambi is a novel that was written in, I believe, 1923. It's in the 20s at some point, by Felix Salten, who was an Austrian author. And then Disney acquired the rights to it at some point, and then they made the movie. So this is from the front cover of an edition of Bambi, and it has some reviews on the front of it. So it's in Frakturschrift, which we'll go over how to read this font in more detail. It's just practice. It's quite intimidating usually when you first read it, but then after like 20 minutes of practicing, you usually start to feel quite comfortable with it. So I've typed it out here in normal font. So Bambi ist ein entzückendes Buch, ein kleines Meisterwerk. Ich kenne kaum eine Tiererzählung, die sich mit dieser Lebensgeschichte eines Rehs messen könnte. Felix Salten ist ein Dichter. So I've noted where the genitive is, eines Rehs, which means of a deer. And I have the translation, I wrote the translation here. So Bambi is a charming book, a little masterpiece. I know of hardly any other animal story that could measure up to this life story of a deer. Felix Salten is a poet. So it's die Lebensgeschichte, the life story of a deer. So you see how like the concept of eines is like of a, right? So die Lebensgeschichte eines Rehs, the life story of a deer. And then we have, that was just this first part, that's this first review. And then there's another one right here that I've typed out. Ein Tierbuch, das Kiplings berühmtem Dschungelbuch an die Seite gestellt wird. Ist dort die exotische Landschaft geschildert, atmet in diesem Werk die Seele des deutschen Waldes. So that is in translation. An animal book that will be placed side by side with Kipling's famous Jungle Book. Dschungelbuch, this is always my favorite. Dschungelbuch is of course Jungle Book. While the exotic landscape is depicted there, it is in this work that the soul of the German forest breathes. So what we're looking at is the soul of the German forest, die Seele des deutschen Waldes. So normally it's der Wald, masculine, and then we get the des to be of the, and then because Wald is one syllable, der Wald, we add the es to make the genitive. Okay, so genitives often appear in horror film titles. So you may be able to guess what DVD cover we're looking at. That is Das Schweigen der Lämmer. Das Schweigen der Lämmer. So das Lamm is the singular, the lamb. Das Lamm, it's neuter. Like baby animals are often neuter, right? So, and baby humans, das Mädchen, das Baby. So babies are neuter. And so die lemma is the plural of that. So what we have here is the genitive. The genitive of the singular would be des Lammes, of the lamb, but then the genitive of the plural is der Lemma, of the lambs. So, and then das Schweigen means of the silence. So what we have is this plural right here, der, and then the plural of lambs. So the silence of the lambs, das Schweigen der Lämmer. They don't capitalize these nouns right here because they're trying to be edgy. So normally both these nouns are supposed to be capitalized, but they want it to be, they want it to look kind of modern or edgy. Okay. So, of course, it's rated 16. This is the German rating system. You have to be 16 to watch this. So then let's try another one. Tanz der Teufel. So in the nominative, what we're dealing with is Tanz is, of course, dance, and then der Teufel. So der Teufel means devil. And then the plural would be die Teufel. You don't actually add anything. Sometimes to make a plural, it doesn't add anything, especially masculine nouns. A lot of times all you do to make the plural is you change the article, but the noun itself stays the same. So what happens is we're going to make a genitive. If it's a genitive of the singular devil, des Teufels, we add this, right? But since it's der Teufel, but it's masculine, we know that we're in the plural, and then this is already the plural, right? So this is dance of the devils, plural. And they changed the meaning quite a bit. This is actually the evil dead. When they make German versions of the movie, when they dub it, sometimes they change they don't do a direct translation of the title. But a lot of times it's like just the translation. Other times it's something a little different. The Evil Dead, which is Dance of the Devils, der Tanz der Teufel. Let's try another one. Die Nacht der lebenden Toten. So this is Night of the Living Dead. And we have der Tote is singular, it means the dead person, right? One dead person, the dead person. And then in the plural, if we wanted to make that plural, we would go to die Toten, which is, plural. And that's the ending. You would put on the plural there. And then to make the genitive of a singular, we change the der to des Toten. And it gets an N for reasons that we will discover later. It's a weak masculine noun, but don't worry about that right now. And then this is der because now we're in the plural. We want to say of the dead people, right? And it's already got the N for plural as well. So it's this N for this plural. So it's the night of the living dead, die Nacht der lebenden Toten, which implies living dead people. Yeah. Okay, and then of course we have Das Pendel des Todes, which is Edgar Allan Poe's story. It's called The Pit and the Pendulum, but this is a slightly different name. So it's actually the pendulum of death. Der Tod means death. So that's a singular. And then die Tode would be the plural, the deaths. And then if we want to take the singular into the genitive, it's des Todes, of the death. And then we want to take the plural into the genitive, would be der Tode, of the deaths. But what we're really dealing with here is of death. So the pendulum of death, technically it says of the death, but sometimes German uses a definite article for these like abstract concepts where English would not. So this is one of those cases. So it's the pendulum of death or the pendulum of the death. Yeah. So we're over here. And because it's one syllable, der Tod, we've got an ES ending there. Okay. So this is a fun activity I like to do a lot. You can do this as homework if you like. I would be very interested to hear your original horror film titles. So we had Das Pendel des Todes, Der Tanz der Teufel, Das Schweigen der Lämmer, Die Nacht der lebenden Toten. Here's mögliche film stars, possible film stars. And then you can do like the blank of the blank, right? So that's always fun. The something of the witch, the hex is the witch, or the something of the werewolf, or whatever it is. So it's pretty fun to imagine some horror film titles that you might make in your next career as a movie director. Okay, so here are some translating tips for the genitive. You can say the article and noun endings are essential key to deciphering the relationships between the nouns in a German sentence. Once the reader recognizes the pattern article, noun, that's what we had here. Article, noun, article, noun. Article, noun, article, noun. Then you know that if there's a possession type relationship, then we're dealing with the genitive. Hier ist das Geld des Mannes, the money of the man, or the man's money. Or it can be an indirect, direct object relationship. Ich gebe dem Mann das Geld. That's what we've been doing with the dative, where it's article, noun, but it's a different type of situation, right? We've got indirect object, then a direct object. So, in dem Theaterstück schreibt der Autor über die Meinung des Volkes und die Macht der Kirche. So, the author writes about the opinion of the people, die Meinung des Volkes, or you could also say the people's opinion. And then the power of the church, die Macht der Kirche, the church's power is fine as well, but maybe the power of the church sounds a little better. And then, das Volk gibt der Kirche das Geld. The people give to the church the money. So that's an indirect object in the dative, and that's a direct object in the accusative. Die Professorin fragt, was ist der Titel des Stückes? What is the title of the play? So now we've got, that's a nominative, it's a predicate noun. And then der Stückes is in our, das Stück is neuter, so we can see that it's now in the genitive. Der Student sagt der Professorin den Titel. So now we are in the genitive here, or no, in the dative. The student says to the professor the title, tells the professor the title. That is our indirect object, der Professorin, even though it looks the same as if it were a genitive. They share the article. Okay. Das Stück heißt Das Leben des Galilei. So, the life of Galileo. Yeah. Okay. So, and then it might be a little tricky because the es ending might make you think that something is plural, right? Because in English we do s's for plurals. And in German there are rare cases where an s is used for a plural, but they're mostly loan words like baby, babies, taxi, taxis. So the s is quite a rare plural ending in German. Most plural endings are going to be with an e or an en, or with not changing it. So just try not to fall into the trap of seeing that s and thinking that's plural. The s actually means genitive. Also there's something to note. The genitive is used for indefinite time phrases. So eines Tages would be one day or someday. You could start a story like that. Eines Tages, one day I was doing this. Or someday I would like to do that. And then eines Abends means one evening, same deal. It's an indefinite, like whenever, not a specific evening. Eines Morgens, one morning I woke up and this happened. Eines Nachts, one night. Yeah, so it's used for that as well. And then the question word is wessen, whose. So you can say, wessen Auto ist das? Whose car is that? Or das, and then the answer would be, das ist das Auto der Studentin. That is the student's car, or the car of the student. See how it's in the genitive. Or you could ask, wessen Fahrrad ist das? Which would be whose bicycle is that? So wessen is always wessen. You don't have to change it to match whatever comes next. So that's the easy thing about wessen. Doesn't matter. Das ist das Fahrrad meines Bruders, my brother's bicycle. Or you could say the bicycle of my brother. Meines Bruders. So now we've got the exercises before we move on to the next part of chapter 3. Das ist der Titel des Buches ist Wilhelm Meister. So just translate, and you can see there's a genitive in there. So just pay attention to that and translate these sentences. And then we've got some examples with wessen questions plus answers, like in that last slide. So it'll always just be like, whose blank is this? And then use this is the blank of my blank, or this is my blank's blank. Yeah. So that's all for the genitive. So have fun with those, and I will see you in the next video. Tschüss, auf Wiedersehen, bis bald.